that the opportunity for AI to elongate our capacity to create value in the economy is going to help serve us well in a reality where we're living long, right?
We hear a lot about the future of work, so much so that it's like a buzz phrase, but what it needs to be is a lived, evolving reality, right? And that means rethinking leadership for a more distributed, digital, and dynamic world. It means treating culture not as a poster on a wall, but as a core lever of performance. And it means helping organizations get braver and smarter about how they grow, change, and lead. I'm Dr. Joey Fawcett, host of the Work Positive podcast, coaching you to grow people and profits. My guest today is all about the future of work and plays best at the intersection of disruption and reinvention, where he helps leaders, teams, and organizations build that talent edge that they need to lead in an uncertain, fast-evolving world of work. He's a talent hacker who's worked with Cisco Systems, EA, and he was LinkedIn's first CHRO. Stanford University created a graduate-level course based on his strategies at LinkedIn. His best-selling book, Workquake, secured his spot on the top 100 global thought leaders in people and talent annually since 2021. So you want to lean in, listen up, and learn from this episode of the Work Positive podcast as we solve today's most urgent people challenges, from attracting top talent and scaling culture to integrating AI in ways that elevate rather than replace human potential and making work better for everyone. Yes, Steve Cadigan is in the house. Steve, welcome to the Work Positive podcast, man. I'm stoked to have you on.
So great to be here.
It is indeed. It is indeed. We had a great conversation before this, so Work Positive Nation, we're going to let you in on the great conversation we're having today. The future of work, AI replacing people or releasing the human potential. Man, there's just a huge landscape that's littered with all kinds of topics when you just say future of work, right?
Absolutely. It is just an unbelievably it's an unbelievable landscape that's going through so much change right now. We could cover so much territory. So it's great that we got 6 hours to record today.
I thought it was 7, but anyway, this course brought to you by. Oh, so where to begin? People are. I want to pick up with this. Your origin. Every superhero has an origin story. What's your origin story of how you got into HR and being such an influencer in the HR space?
I think I can answer the first one. The second part of that, how I became an influencer, hard to answer. But listen, I finished school probably recognizing that the joy I have as an athlete, as a sports fan, was very high. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life when I went to college or when I graduated, but I did know that I loved playing pickup basketball. I played 3 sports in college: baseball, basketball, my freshman year, and then I switched to tennis. And I love competition. I love seeing how people handle competitive situations, whether it's I was the star and now I'm not. How do I play when I'm behind? How do I handle victory? How do I handle defeat? How do I handle different styles of coaching? And when I discovered 1 year into my career journey that there's a profession called human resources, and they'll actually pay you to think about this in an organizational setting, I'm like, I would do that for free. Like,
sign me up.
I mean, recruiting is being a coach. It's like, how do I build the best team? What environments produce the best outcomes for this team? And who's the best fit for this kind of style boss or style industry or company? I got really lucky at an early age, probably 23, 24, to stumble. I didn't know what human resources was when I was in college. Never even heard of it. Okay. I was the son of a minister and a social worker. And in my house, going in the business world was not part of the master plan. But I think the origin story does include me watching my parents give and help others and try to build community. And I think that's helped feed me in a different setting to discover that I love this world of sport and I can bring that interest and apply that in the world of work. So that's sort of how I got there. And I think, human resources, I do a lot of coaching, and I have over the years with aspiring HR leaders. And one of the things I like to tell them is, listen, this is a very simple discipline. There's 2 things you need to think about. You need to have judgment and credibility. And if you're not credible, no one cares about your judgment. And if, you don't have good judgment, you're not going to be credible. So,
right.
for whatever reason. Right? Yeah. And so for whatever reason, I've been are gifted with the capacity to build trust really quickly, and that
Mm,
served me really, really well.
mm,
And one of my mentors one time told me, he said, "Steve, work's not about working hard. Work's about building trust. It just so happens working hard builds trust. The goal is
mm.
build trust. The goal is not work hard, but working hard has a good outcome if you're really committed and you do good work." So I think that's contributed to allowing me to be a someone that people tend to listen to more than not.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
teenagers aside, okay.
Yeah, it's game on. It's a whole different world when you're talking about teenagers. I'm beyond. I've moved past that, and I'm still here, and I have a little bit of hair left.
Is
So,
there life on the other side?
yeah,
Is
well, it depends. If you like being bald, it's okay. You have beautiful hair now. We'll talk to you after your third goes through the teen years. But now we have two granddaughters, so it's going to be interesting watching them go through it and see what the difference is. So you and I were talking earlier about the generational distinctions. So let's talk about that for just a minute.
sure.
Um, how comfortable are you sharing the story about the project your son was given? Are you
Yeah,
ready?
sure, sure,
Okay.
sure. I'm happy to do that. Yeah,
Yeah, share that story because I found that story fascinating about what are the needs of the 20 somethings as they're entering into the workplace
sure.
today. Because I get that question all the time from people about, we've got 5 generations, we got 4 generations here. How do I manage those?
Yeah. Well, under the guise of what we were talking about, was just how this frontier of work is so different today, and I think we all need to appreciate how the new generations are approaching work and solving problems, and thinking about how hard it is for them to choose a career today in a world where there's more new industries and the need for new skills has never been faster. And the story I was telling you is my son's having this internship, and last week he was really frustrated. I mean, we're talking like kick the furniture, really stuck with this project of forecasting. Please develop. He's on in a finance team in a big company, and they asked him to, hey, please develop a new forecasting model that's more accurate than what we're currently doing.
Mhm.
And I was telling him, like, that's a big project. I was telling his name's
Oh,
Connor. I said, Connor, that's a really big project. I said, so what I do when I'm facing something and I'm really frustrated is I call a friend who knows more than I do. And I said, my belief is whenever I'm frustrated, it's because I'm missing some information. So I need to go find some information. And so I said, so why don't you call your boss again, make sure you're clear, test some ideas, say, am I heading on the right track? Which he did, and came back, and he was even more frustrated. So I was like, okay, well, do you know some people in finance? I'm an HR guy. Okay. I
I
specifically
might
am
know
not.
somebody, son.
Yeah. So, so he went a few days, and I said, so I said, have you yet leveraged the AI? Have you gone to AI and said, hey, if you're me, how would you solve this problem? And he said, yeah, but AI given me some generic answers, so it's not that helpful. I said, okay, that's a good start. Have you called a few other people? Yes, I have. Well, the breakthrough moment came for him where he realized YouTube doesn't have the answer for him, which is,
Mm,
again, as you and I were talking about, in an era where Reid Hoffman, the chairman of LinkedIn, who had sat two cubes from him for a number of years at LinkedIn, used to say that today is about not what you know, it's who you know, because there's no way you
mm.
can know everything in a world that's changing so quickly. And I thought about that. And so I'm trying to
Wow.
arm my son with it's who
Uh-huh.
you know, not what you know. And that's part of, and I didn't want to tell him this, but my inner voice was saying part of your learning journey as an intern is it's not what the answer is, it's how you're going to solve this.
Mm.
And feeling frustrated, I love that he was frustrated because that means he's got that competitive fire.
He's
Like
got
he
some
wants
passion
this,
around
this
this,
where he
yeah.
wants to get it right. And I was like, okay, that's
Mhm.
good. But I didn't want to tell him, hey, I'm so happy that you're frustrated because I'm
I
good.
celebrate your misery, son.
Right. But it was a frustration, I think, born maybe from a generation where I've got answers I can find really quickly. I can order my food quickly, I can get my video game
Oh,
quickly. I can find answers really quickly. Now
mhm.
I can't. Ouch. And that was maybe it's a generational moment. It's a great learning, and I'm super impressed by his company putting this at his feet.
Me
And
too.
maybe that was part of the learning, right?
Big part of the learning. And as we think about the future of work, that whole where do I find answers and what do I turn to augmented intelligence for? What do I turn to people for? Or are there are people who are augmented, right? And I can access them on one level through their bot. And how do I get to the person? I mean, there's just a lot of complexity in finding solutions today.
There is, and I think we're given a beautiful moment here of discovery. You know, of how are we going to leverage this moment where AI has so much promise, but even the creators are uncertain and scared about
Yeah, a
what.
little bit afraid. Yeah, Sam Altman was quoted recently saying that about ChatGPT 5.
Right,
Yeah.
right. When he released ChatGPT, by the way, I don't know if the audience knows this, but you can piece it together pretty quickly. Same week he released it, he was appearing in Capitol Hill saying, "Hey, you lawmakers need to put some laws in place because this is really dangerous stuff." And I'm thinking, wait, you just released something that
Uh-huh. That's dangerous.
is that dangerous, and you're asking other people to put laws? Maybe you should put guidelines into what you're releasing. Uh, and
Hmm.
the and that's where you take a look at. I just taught a class of aspiring board leaders. I'm on a company called the Boardroom Africa, and we're helping develop women board members in sub-Saharan Africa.
Sweet.
And the content we use the case study of the board OpenAI board and how they
Hmm.
fired him when his actions were going against his stated mission of nonprofit, and they're like, okay, you're fired. You're not following the mission you told us you wanted to do. And he goes, no, 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 you're fired, and I'm rehired. And the biggest investor, Microsoft, came in, and just wow, this is you don't see this every day,
It's
and it's really a wild frontier.
it's insanity. So where's the due north, as Dr. Covey used to talk about? Where's the due north in all this dialogue of AI human interaction?
I think I'm not sure the answer to that question, but I have some thinking around what should be part of that conversation, and I think it
Okay.
starts with we have inherited a paradigm of how we implement technology in organizations over the last 30 years, which is do more, go faster, and have it cost less money.
Yep.
And if we're going to use that paradigm with this, it doesn't end well for the world. It doesn't end well. Instead, I would challenge all of us to say, how can I make work more interesting, dynamic, and filled with new opportunities so I can create new value and grow the top line?
Mm.
Most tech hasn't been built to grow the top line, it's been built to shrink the bottom line, to
Mm.
cut your expenses. And that's fine. And AI can do a pretty good job at that. But its greater opportunity is not what we're used to. And that's why it's a big shift for us. And it's very threatening for
Mm.
you or I to go to AI and say, how can you do my job better? And AI is going to say, well, I don't even know if I need you. Like take a look at legal researchers, paralegals. I mean, the list goes on and on of the disruption.
Mm.
And so a lot of people are sitting there going, why would I train AI why would I do that? Truck drivers, like, why would I train AI to take my job? That's
You're
just,
right.
and
Exactly.
maybe that's where we need to start, pausing here and saying, let's play this out. And most companies are saying, look, we cut 400 customer service jobs. Yeah, let's go. And I'm thinking, well, that's great for your shareholders, but who's going to want to work for you in the future? If
Mm.
that's your celebration, that's your touchdown dance, is your
Hmm.
head count. How about we just found ways of our 400 customer service people to act like 10,000 customer service people? That's what we found. And they're able to do it in 3 days a week. And we're going to pay them the full 5 days a week salary, and we're going to celebrate that. But we're not seeing that. And that to me is sort of like where we should be thinking about these conversations, not the do more for less and faster, because that doesn't end well. And by the way, if we take a look at the technology of the last, half century, email, we have not figured out email yet. We're not more productive with email. We're more behind, more stressed out.
I
You know,
think we're more behind and more stressed out.
right?
Yeah.
It's a
It's
tool
now
for
it's
me to make you behind. I'm going to send you more stuff that's impossible for you to read, and then I'm going to feel good about myself because I got it off my desk.
that's right. And I'm going to CC everybody in my address book, right? Just to say, look at how many people I consulted.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's crazy. So instead of artificial intelligence versus human,
Mhm.
there's an opportunity for augmented intelligence where we can release that joy de vivre, the human spirit in work, redefine work, engage people more, and
Mhm.
then supercharge them to be able to get more done of the mundane things, which allows us to innovate and create, which is truly the human spirit of work.
Right, right. And the friction to realize that is profound because most business plans were not built for that simple transition. They're built for
Mm.
X plus Y equals Z, and I want to control those dials it's all about productivity, right? And I think we've over obsessed on product. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for productivity.
Sure.
This AI moment is allowing us to. I'll give you a conversation. It's the best way to do this. Just give you a real conversation I've had with some friends. I got a lot of friends in recruiting, and
Uh-huh.
one said to me recently, "Hey, how can we use AI to do recruiting better?" And I said, and I was just thinking about this out loud, and we were playing a game of tennis, and I said, "Hey, I don't think that's the right question. I think the right question to AI is, AI, how can I solve recruiting differently, or can I, with artificial intelligence?" And so
Mm.
we role played this scenario where if you go to some AI, platform and say, "How can I solve recruiting differently?" AI is probably going to say, "Tell me what recruiting means to you. What does it mean to you?" And then you're
Yep.
probably going to say, "Recruiting is bringing in new skills, talent, and experiences to grow my organization." That's what recruiting is. I want to recruit
Mm.
new ideas and people and skills and abilities. And then AI is probably going to say, "Well, tell me about what skills, and experiences and abilities you have now in your company." And that's where you're going to go, "Well, I'm not really sure. I got their CVs, resumes in my personnel file about 10 years ago, but we didn't have a really good LMS system. And when I bought it, no one really used it. So I don't really know what everyone has."
Uh-huh.
And then AI is going to say, "It sounds like you have a skill awareness problem, not a recruiting problem." And that would
Mm.
be right. And that's
Yep.
how, I go to many organizations and say, "You think you have a recruiting problem? Tell me all the skills you have." And they say, "What?" They look like, "Why would we do that?" And I was like, "Well, because I know there's people leaving your company today that could do something else in your company, and they don't know it and you don't know it. So maybe there's a way for us to be more aware of how people can transfer and learn new things. So wouldn't you rather take 3 months to train someone than 6 months to hire someone? Wouldn't you rather do that?"
Well, it's more cost effective for sure, right? Because you already know they're a culture fit, and that's why you want to upskill them
Right.
in
And
that
by
way.
the way, I really feel that talent today is more loyal to learning than they are to companies. So if you can grow them, develop them, make them better, and offer them something better than, you know, um, sort of job security, offer them career security. I'm going to
Uh,
make you better for the future. Even if this job or this company doesn't work out, I'm going to make you better. And then
mm,
you're going to feel more confident and less insecure, even if this doesn't work out for you, that you are going to leave better, with
mm.
more skills and a greater network and more capacity to solve problems. And I think that's the promise that we really got to mine. And as I was saying in the beginning, I don't think the way our business models work, where investors say, "I'm going to give you this money, you need to produce this outcome in a short term, a short, amount of time,"
Like a quarter.
it suits the big change that we need to deliver on, right? And that's why, when we were at LinkedIn and we are thinking of going public, and all of our executives were all big company refugees, and we said, "We don't want to go public. We want the exit and the financial fruits of an exit.
Hmm.
We don't want the burden of having to sacrifice our future to make this quarter's number," right? We've seen that happen, and we don't want to do that. And I don't know that we have a lot of choice right now, but it's whoever is courageous and willing to experiment with, let's play around with this AI and find new ways of building new market opportunities and new ways of creating value. I think the spoils are going to be yours, but it's going to take a lot of courage because there's a lot of business architecture inertia that's going to disable that from being an easy transition.
And
Right.
what we're talking about is so counterintuitive to, as you're talking about, the traditional, give me a result at the end of this quarter and we
Right.
can build on that and continue on. It sounds like those of us who are in HR or small business owners who can pivot faster than large companies, it sounds like a greenfield opportunity for us to really emphasize the human dynamics and to see the broader landscape of humans and work. So if augmented intelligence is the path that I'm seeking to pursue, if personal professional development is an artificial division and now it's just development, it's learning and development, and I'm investing in you so that you can move out there and solve problems, provide solutions that we haven't even imagined yet, things that haven't even come up. How do we, in creating that kind of culture, communicate that to top talent in order to attract them, not recruit them, but in order to attract them to our teams?
Yeah, and that is the master stroke that we, my leadership team and I at LinkedIn were able to figure out at the end of the day. Like, we cannot pay more than Google can. We cannot pay more than Facebook can. Apple can, and we knew that because we're supplying them our recruiting tools to recruit against us. They're making more profit in a day than we're making in a year in the early days, and so we said,
Yeah.
well, what can we do? And we said, we can be the best job they've ever had. We can be the most rich,
Love it.
richest learning environment they've ever had, so that if they stay here a month, a year, 5 years, they're going to be better. Okay. And so that was the promise that we said. And then we said, the problem we're solving, we think is really worth solving, which is creating opportunities for people to find their dream jobs, your children. And that's a problem worth solving. It's a problem worth giving your valuable time to. Right.
Mm.
And I think that's the big message that I like to give leaders today is to say, the way, and again, I was working for a recruiting company. Okay.
That's a
We
hilarious part.
realized was the
Yeah.
way we're going to win recruiting is not by being more ninja with recruiting. It's
Right.
becoming the place the best people want to find. Okay. And that is the checkmate move. So,
Yes.
and we even realized, and it's not talked about because it's counter to selling the LinkedIn product, but we realized we're not going to win on the open market. Let's go win on campus. Let's go
Mm.
crush new grad recruiting and turn into a place that develops talent instead of hires talent. And of course, we're going to have mid-level and high-level positions
Absolutely.
time to time, but that's not the core of where we're going to win at this stage of our growth, right? I think they can win there now because they can pay. They've got the Microsoft checkbook. They can pay a lot, but we couldn't back then. Most people, the first 4 years I was there, took a pay cut to join. Don't cry for them. It worked out.
It was a good day.
Right. But that's what we had to do. And that's that pivot of we're going to develop people instead of hire people really
Mm.
set LinkedIn up for the future. And if you think about today, the big question I ask every executive is, do you think people are going to stay? What's your big problem? Say people are leaving quickly. They're leaving real fast.
Mm.
And not only that, they're changing careers faster than ever before. So I
Yes.
say, okay, we can talk about why you can, get it off your chest that these young generation are disloyal and have a career attention span problem. We could talk about why, but let's talk about a bigger question. Do you think that's going to change in the future? Do you think people are going to stay longer 4, 5, 10 years from now? And the answer is always, no, I don't. I said,
Mm.
okay, so let's play. And it's not because you're not nice. It's because they see more choice.
Yeah.
They see more opportunity. You and I looked in a newspaper. Most kids don't know what that is. That's how we found our jobs in the classified ad. Today, we can not only see more opportunity, but I can see how I can use my skills and experiences in ways I never could before. So I have it's like eating in your basement for a year and then going to a Vegas buffet table and going, oh my gosh, I could have lobster and,
Something besides ramen.
I want to taste it. And that's what people want to do. So if you buy into that, if you believe that people probably won't stay, then let's build an architecture that expects people are not going to stay a long time, like college basketball, like college football. They know their players are going to be there 1 year. So what do I got to do? I got to onboard people really quickly. I got to accelerate team building. I've had a simpler offense and a simpler defense. If you are a leader today and any job takes 5 years for someone to understand how to do it, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're just creating a self-inflicted wound that's going to hurt your business success. Build for people to probably stay 2 to 3 years. And if they stay longer, great. And I'm not excited that people are leaving fast, but that's where we need to move to, which is appreciating what we did at LinkedIn. We're in the heart of Silicon Valley. Like, come on, it's like a software engineer stays 1.2 years.
Mm.
So let's build an environment that fosters accepting that's the reality rather than fighting it. And that again is really hard.
It's
What I'm saying?
counterintuitive again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really hard.
Well, what are we going to do? We're going to sit on the couch and moan about it, or are we going to parlay it into some leverage that we can use to actually create a better culture, which may just increase the length of time people stay with us because it's a culture in which we're developing them as opposed to trying to just develop the company. It is possible to grow people and profits at the same time.
And the example that I love to use, and it involves Silicon Valley, which I'm not here to sell because it's a crazy place and there's a lot of broken parts of Silicon Valley. However, I don't think you can argue that there's more innovation and creativity, market value creation, and high market value companies in that geography than any geography in the world. You could argue at a time Israel was producing some incredible startups, but Silicon Valley also has the highest amount of turnover. And I think those two outcomes, creativity and innovation off the charts and high turnover, are connected. In a world that's changing quickly, your competitive advantage today is new people with new ideas and new ways of solving problems. And if you want an example, look at the automobile industry. They are getting their lunch handed to them by a knucklehead who's got 6 part-time jobs, who's never built cars before, whose company is more valuable than Ford, Honda, Toyota, GMC, Mercedes, BMW combined.
I know. It's ridiculous.
They're winning because they're not from your industry.
A disruptor.
That's right. And that's got to be terrifying for a lot of legacy businesses. Look at banking. Like, hey, when Amazon and Apple are coming for you, good luck to you.
That's a lot of money behind that, right? Let me ask you a question. What if the key to growing your work culture hides in plain sight? Take the free Work Positive Culture Assessment to discover it. Get insights in less than 4 minutes that transform your culture so you grow people and profits. You just answer 13 simple questions and discover your culture stage, strengths, and personalized next steps. Get your free aha culture moment at workpositive.today. Go to workpositive.today right now.
Right.
Steve Cadigan is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. By the way, in the show notes, just in case you are on LinkedIn, which we've mentioned a few times here today, his profile URL is there. So go over there and hit him up and connect with Steve and follow him and learn from him. So what we're talking about is not the usual train of thought today, but we recognize, and Work Positive Nation recognize, what we've always done is not going to get us where we want to go in the future. So what are some of the challenges in this transition from where we are to where we want to be? Some of the big challenges that you see, Steve?
Well, where I sit today in that whole conversation, and thank you for asking, is really just we've got to build our awareness and recognize where we are. You can't change unless you recognize what's broken and what needs to change. And I think we have to recognize that the architecture of work, the paradigm of the teams that win are the teams that stay together the longest, isn't necessarily built for this amount of change. We need more skills fast than ever. We need people with new abilities. Universities are not equipped to deliver that. Businesses aren't equipped to deliver that. And so I think we've got to appreciate the fundamentals of the architecture. Many of the things that we're using today are just not built for this amount of change. And that's exciting because we get to build a new model of work. And I'll give you an example. In the world of technology, the talent's moving so fast, and they figured out that the architecture of the salary increase budget of every year, we'll take a look at you and maybe we'll give you a 3% or a 5%, or if it's been a good year, 7%. And they know if I go to another company, it's going to start with 10%. And the architecture wasn't built to support salaries in a high fluid environment. You see what I'm saying? So, and that's just the beginning. There's dozens of other examples like that where we're going to need to deeply invest in growing our talent today and start looking to hire not based on what people know, but what they can learn. And that's sort of the big.
Say that again for the people on the back row. Not for what they know, but for what they can learn.
Right. If you believe your industry is going to change, if you believe your company's going to need to change, and you're going to believe your job's going to change, and in HR we know this. What's the shelf life of the job description being accurate? About 5 minutes. That
may be optimistic.
Let's hire for learning velocity. Let's appreciate that in the next 5 to 10 years, I think 50% of our hiring decisions is going to be based on what someone can learn, not what someone knows. And it's interesting. I'm going to do a free sponsorship for a book I'm reading right now. I'm reading The Art of Winning by Bill Belichick. We both graduated from that great university no one's ever heard of called Wesleyan University. But Bill says the greatest and most important thing we look for is what will this player become? And when he starts talking about Tom Brady and Mike Vrabel and all these other incredible players that he's had, they saw something in the future, not where they're at now, not their experience now.
Brady was a 6th round pick, right?
That's right. And Belichick does something really cool in his book. For every, like when he got to page 85, he starts talking, or 58, Lord, he says, This is Lawrence Taylor's number. I want to talk about Lawrence Taylor. When he gets to page 199, he goes, this is where Tom Brady was drafted. I want to talk about Tom Brady on page 199.
Oh,
It's
wow.
super cool. He's really
It's cool,
cool.
man.
And but I'm about 3/4 of the way through, but I quickly wrote that down because this is a big part of why I have so much energy. It's a big part of the book that I'm writing right now, which is we really, in a world that's changing really quickly, we're going to have to really start building a new talent strategy, focus
Mm.
on people's capacity to really learn quickly and our capacity to fuel that learning so that we continue to have an edge in a market that's changing and we can be more adaptable, more agile.
I love that, and probably because of my age, I'm about to say what I'm about to say. But that ability to learn, right, spans generations. And so, whereas we've typically set it up, by this age, your neuroplasticity is going down, you can't learn as much. But instead, that accumulated knowledge and that longing for knowledge, I mean, that keeps the boomer generation in the market longer, right? If they truly love to learn and are intentional about their personal development.
So true. So I'll give you a great story. I was in Spain recently, and I'm on the faculty of a university over there, and the founders and I were having this deep late night conversation. They said something along the lines of what you just said, which is they said AI is the moment for seniors. I said, what do you mean? He goes, they were saying, listen, if the future is about your capacity to communicate and you articulate things to extract value and insight from AI, seniors have that. They're from a much more oral moment in
Yes.
our history, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, and I was like, whoa, that is really cool.
Blew the
I was
top of
like,
your head off, right?
my gray hair started turning darker again. I was like,
You felt young again.
but that's a really interesting thought
It
that
is, isn't it?
the opportunity for AI to elongate our capacity to create value in the economy
Yes.
is going to help serve us well in a reality where we're living longer, right?
Well, and
Yeah.
particularly when we understand that that value also comes from relationships, right? So there's
Mm.
that ability to articulate and communicate, but that it comes from relationships, and those can span generations, right? Well,
Mhm.
one of my big thrills is, as of the recording of this, my second granddaughter's 7 days old. So, dude, I'm looking at her and I'm going, wow, who are you going to be? What are you going to like? How are you going to grow? I've
Mhm.
got to hang around. I choose to hang around long enough to see what that is for her and how I can seed into her. So our gen is interested in legacy and continuing that legacy as long as possible. And then my PCP told me today my blood lab results were wonderful. So, it's just, that's right, man. Be strong, boomers. But it's an opportunity for us to continue, but also to bequeath and to learn to help others fail at the edge of their competence, but with the emotional intelligence to get up and learn some more, just like Connor did in
Yeah.
that project, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I mean, that's the joy. I tell this to a lot of young workers all the time, like, hey, people want to mentor you. People want to coach you. Don't feel
Right,
shy about asking for it. We all feel
right,
good
right.
about helping others. And I think that's the play here, which is the tendency with all these tools and technologies is just hang out in our basement and never turn on the lights and just have the pizza delivered. But
Yeah.
boy, the power of your network and community today more than ever, I
Mm,
think is going to
mm.
serve us all well. Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. Well, we could go on and on and on, and it really would be a 6 hour course, right? So, when we go to read your book, Workquake, we're going to discover a lot of this. You're working on another book now. You got a title for it? Yep.
My working title is called Hacking Talent. Um,
Well, I knew you were a talent hacker, and I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
a
But
really
it's
cool
really
title.
building a new talent strategy. So, but Workquake really identifies, hey, there's a lot of things that are broken. Here's some ideas, and now
Okay.
I've evolved some of those ideas and said, okay, if you believe where all these trends of people aren't staying as long and companies need to change quickly, here's how I would offer some suggestions for how we can.
Oh, great. Well, we love practical implementation strategies and tactics around here, so that's amazing. When we go to stevecadigan.com, all this is in the show notes, by the way, Work Positive Nation, in case you're walking the dog or on the Peloton or something. So when we go to stevecadigan.com, what are we going to find, Steve?
Just what I'm up to. I've got a lot of
Okay.
articles, stories,
Okay.
and I make a living speaking in to organizations and also at conferences around the world. So if some of
Hmm.
these ideas are interesting to you and I can help, help you advance the conversation of change and building new talent strategies, please reach out.
Yeah, and if you're on TikTok, go over there and find Steve Cadigan. There's some really cool videos over there. So, Work Positive Nation always wants to know for my guest, Steve, and so I know we've stretched out a broad landscape here, but we're after one thing, that dot that we can do one thing. So, if you were to advise Work Positive Nation, here's one thing you can do starting today to create a positive work culture. What would it be?
I would say have conversations with people in your, on your team. How can I help you get to wherever it is that you want to go? Like, are you tracking where you want to be going? And if you are, great. And if not, what can I do to help, whether that's inside the company or outside the company? And I think we all need to start caring about people's for their entirety of their career, not just when they work for us.
It's really about the people, isn't it? Steve Cadigan, thanks so much. Go get your Work Quick book from Amazon right now, stevecadigan.com. If you hang out on LinkedIn, which I think a bazillion people do, you'll find his URL to his profile in the show notes below. Thank you so much for the wisdom, for the strategies, the tactics, for the honest talk about where we are today. We've given people a lot of great handles in this AI human conversation and what augmented intelligence can look like. So go develop somebody at Work Positive Nation. Steve, I'm better for the conversation. Thanks for your wisdom, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
I'm grateful you joined our conversation about creating positive work cultures that grow people and profits. Connect with me directly on LinkedIn today. Just search for Dr. Joey Fawcett or click the link that's below in your show notes. When you send your connection request, mention that you're a podcast listener because I want to give you a free digital copy of my Work Positive Team Edition book. That's a $19.95 value. It contains practical strategies that I've personally used with clients to transform toxic work environments into thriving cultures. We explore how to create a positive work culture in every single one of these episodes. Our LinkedIn connection, though, allows you and me to directly talk about your specific challenges. I personally read and respond to your messages because I genuinely care about your success in creating a positive work culture. So go to LinkedIn and let's connect. Remember to mention you're a podcast listener to receive your free Work Positive Team Edition book. I look forward to seeing you on our next episode of the Work Positive Podcast.